Hi everyone, I thought you might appreciate just a little bit of explanation behind how to fill out your SC5 for assessment point 5, which is the subject knowledge audit part. I'm going to do this video thinking both about secondary and about primary, so excuse me if I'm sort of talking about both. We've got slightly different language for both phases. So I'm going to try and share with you a window so you can see the SC5. So hopefully you're seeing that now. As you can see, it's not vastly different to the ones that you've been using all year long. So it wouldn't be a big disaster if you already started using one of the previous ones. This one's only slightly different to just keep nudging you towards thinking purely about standard 3. I just want to point out, obviously most of us are absent from school at the moment, but you might want to let us know in that box just to remind us if you've had any illness that's impacted your ability to really do as much on this as you had hoped to do, or if you've had to spend a lot of time looking after your own children and homeschooling them, and that has probably impacted you as well. So if you want to signal for us in that you've been absent, that you haven't been able to work as hard on this as you would have liked, that might be the box where you do so. Obviously, we're aware of your situations, but you might want to flag it up there. What we will then ask you to do is the same as we've done all year. So if you have a look at the first thing that you will do in part 1 is you're going to look at identifying your own strengths and development areas with just your focus on standard 3. So tell us 3 things that you think are your strength as a teacher as far as subject knowledge goes. What topics, ideas, strategies in subject areas are you confident at using? So for example, you might be an English trainee who's got a fantastic background in literature, your degree is literature, your A-level was literature, and you might have spent this year teaching a lot of poetry and a lot of Shakespeare, and you really feel like you can confidently hit the classroom with that. That's where you would identify it. But also you might want to pop in there areas where you have made a real journey this year, where you've really developed your subject knowledge. So maybe if you were, I'll use the English example again, if you're a really strong literature background trainee, but you've had to teach a lot of English language and you now feel pretty confident in that, well, this is the place to say so. So apply that to any subject and into primary. What areas do you feel really confident teaching, and what areas do you feel you've made a lot of progress in? And just let us know what those are, but purely on subject knowledge. Similarly, on the other side, no teacher is expected to be an absolute expert in the entirety of the curriculum. It's too huge and it's ever changing. So it is perfectly okay to hit your NQT year having met standard 3, but still have areas to develop. So we would like to know there, from your point of view, when you hit your NQT classroom in September, what subject areas are you going to feel a little shaky on? And what that does is it helps us build a portfolio for what we're sending to your NQT school. So your NQT mentor will be aware, look, I haven't had a chance to teach much Shakespeare, so I'm going to need a little bit of support in that area. So it's perfectly fine for you to identify in there 3 or 4 areas that you just haven't had the chance this year to really teach and get to grips with. Then, as usual, give us a little brief narrative and provide some evidence in your portfolio towards that narrative. So just as I was explaining for the strengths and development areas, you have probably been on a bit of a journey. I have no doubt all of you have stood in front of classrooms this year and have taught things that you've had to learn yourself. So tell us a bit about that. You started the year strong in these areas, but weak in other areas. What did you do to strengthen and broaden your subject knowledge so that you could confidently go in front of children and teach them? You might want to include SC1s and SC2s and SC3s in there if you like, but we're also happy for you in this assessment point 5 folder to also present us with examples of work that you have produced. Could be PowerPoints, could be worksheets, could be actual children's work, but we would also like you to include an SC6. That was the sequence narrative. So a sequence of lessons that you planned with a subject knowledge focus where you really plan for children to make progress. So check in your folders, check in with that. Obviously, you might be writing an SC6 sequence plan now for children that you won't actually see again, but that process of planning, how do I incrementally get children to make progress in a subject knowledge area? That's what we want to see in your folder. Then we'd also like you to do what we like you to do all of the time. This is really to get you to reference, well, how did I actually make use of the training that I've had? So all year for secondary, you've had the benefit of a subject course tutor, and you've had subject professional studies sessions, as well as your in-school mentor and all of their resources. So can you please, in that section, reflect on, well, my subject training sessions that I've had. Secondary is what I've just described, and in primary, it's a lot of those Thursday sessions that Don has provided. Just reference which one of those you found particularly useful, which ones really helped you make some progress in your subject knowledge. You might also want to talk a bit about general professional studies sessions and also the SWIT touchstones. I think Carol Dweck is always really important here, because there's nothing harder than going in front of a class of 30 children, teaching something that you're new to yourself. You have to have a really open mindset about it, and this is the area we'd like to hear you reflect on that. Now, this also needs to go to your mentor, and that's what part 3 is about. You know, the deadline for this assessment point is in May. So please make sure that you give your mentor plenty of time to make some comments about your strength and development areas. They'll probably be led by you. They'll probably want a conversation, and they might want you to upload things to your e-portfolio so they can have a look through what you've done. And we'll also be asking them to identify your strengths and progress, but also your development areas for your NQT year. After that, the next section is where it gets a little different for primary and secondary. So for secondary, we rely very much on the subject course tutors to make comments about your progress, whereas in primary, this section will be filled out by your teacher training coordinator. So I'll just repeat that. Primary, we'd like you to send this section to your teacher training coordinator, but for secondary, we want you to send it to your subject course tutor. What that person will do is they will comment on your subject knowledge. They'll comment on your evidence bundle. They may not have a conversation with you, but they will make some comments about the journey that you have been on this year. Continued in the second box, your general progress made on subject knowledge since the start of the programme. Your SCT or your TTCO will also make the decision at this point, are you still on track to meet the QTS by the end of the programme? And they'll look at it through the lens particularly of Standard 3. And then what they will do as well, being led by you and by your mentor, they will then set 3 targets for subject knowledge that they think you should take into your NQT year. The form I believe I sent out to secondary as well, unfortunately just has Don's email address on it. That's a nice little scam. Secondary, please don't send yours to Don. If you can send yours to Justina and upload them to your AP5 folder. And primary, if you can send yours to Don and upload it to the AP5 folder, that would be brilliant. So I'm hoping that is a reasonable explanation of the expectations for the SC5 AP5. SC5 for AP5. But otherwise, you know where to go. Please come straight to Dawn and myself if you have any questions, or your subject course tutors may be able to help as well. So don't sit and worry about them, just get in touch with us and we can clarify anything that's not obvious. Okay, good luck with that. See if I can finish recording somehow now.